Hello and welcome. Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to Ultimate Speaker Community Presents our Speaker Spotlight. And today I have an amazing guest, a young man who is tearing it up on the podcast scene, in the podcast world. Let me tell you about our guest today. His name is Mitch Harley. He comes from the construction world. He actually owned a business for a couple of years when he was quite young, like 17, 18 years old. He'll tell us more about that. And he's always had a passion for working with people. Now, in the world of coaching and podcasting, he is putting his dream in motion, and public speaking has always been a part of his life. In fact, he grew up with parents. I believe his father was a public speaking coach, and he is doing amazing things in the podcast world. He is the host and creator of the podcast, the Perspective Podcast. The Podcast Perspective. I don't know. I get it wrong. He's going to clue us in. It's the Perspective Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the broadcast, Mitch Harley. Woo! Welcome. You hear everybody cheering?
I hear them loud.
Woo!
I can hear them from all over.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. And guess what, folks? This is our first international guest. So our little Ultimate Speaker Community Presents Speaker Spotlight is now international. Woohoo! Very cool. So Mitch, take a few moments and just before we get into everything that you're doing right now with the Perspective Podcast and your coaching and how you work with businesses and speakers, take us back to, I guess, the beginning, just a wee little background, where you grew up, what your early days were like, and just a little backstory of Mitch Harley.
Yeah, so I don't know how many, you said international, so I don't know how many people are familiar with Canada and the geographics, but basically northern Alberta, north of Montana and Utah is where I born, raised, went through near the end of high school. I got into the trades world, and the guy that I teamed up with and started working with me, I mean, he was a phenomenal instructor, phenomenal teacher. He's just one of those guys that everything he touches turned to gold. And so it was very easy to excel with him. And so late teens, I started taking on my own projects. By the time I was 20, I was kind of running my own sole proprietorship in that world. And I just kept kind of going along that line until I ended up, took like some management jobs along the way and things like that. But then I got into more of a corporate, I guess, type structure and in the distribution, but still in the trades. So I knew the materials very well. And I progressed fairly quickly in that company until the corporate world just wasn't for me anymore and separated ways there. And then after that, I met my partner, Devin, and we started the journey of the podcast world together. He had a marketing company and I had a sales and training management company, and we kind of joined forces, and this is where we're at now, coaching.
And here we are today. Yeah, that's very exciting. And you're young, so you ventured into business quite young, which is pretty exciting. And what made the shift from, because that's clearly a very different world, right? Construction, the trades, and then into, you were outdoors, you're getting dirty, you're right.
Yeah.
And now, so what caused the shift, or made you want to get out of that into something in a different vein?
I mean, I always like the trades. I like building. I like construction.
Okay.
I think that's really cool. I like working with my hands. I'm just that guy. Shop class was my niche, in school. I was not an English major at all. But ever since I was a kid, like, I'm such an extroverted person. Like, on the scale, I'm like 80, 90% extroverted. So people is what I need. Okay. And what I found with trades was where I was starting to really die inside was working by myself, working at the same job site. That repetitiveness, it really ate away at me.
Wow.
So that was hard for me. So that's why when getting into kind of the distribution part of it, it was really neat getting into that outside sales and management style, because I'm working with clients and customers and sales and projects. And it's just, that really got me excited. And then when I started working with teams of salespeople, and, traveling to get training and going all over North America. I was down in Florida and Pennsylvania and, you name it, I was all over. That was exciting and fun for me. And so that's where I was still connected with that trades world that I was really good at, but I also got now my passion. And so leaving that corporate world, I realized like I got to stick with people. And if, making some money on the intern was taking on some trades work, fine. But, coaching and working with people and building a team, that's where my life needed to go.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And so you mentioned your partner, Devin. So you guys work together. He's on more on the sales and marketing promotion side of things. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Devin is extremely good at what he does. He's more of the tech and the actual, workings of what we do, the marketing side of it. I've always been a strong sales end of it, that networking, that creating buzz and drive for us. And that, the coaching in this perspective of talking and being heard and how to come across clear, how to create content that's engaging, how to create those outlines. That was always my strong suit. And so that's what I brought to the table.
So let's talk about, and how long have you had the podcast now?
So the podcast is coming into season 2.
Season 2, as in year 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's a big win.
It is, for sure. And how often do you record, or how often do you drop new episodes?
So we kind of went through this phase. So that just to be clear on what the perspective is, yes, we have an audience, and yes, we have parameters and that we really gauge towards. But the perspective podcast is actually it's something we use to provide credibility in the sense of like, this is an organic podcast versus a paid podcast. Mm-hmm. And so we have paid podcasts and we have organic ones. And so we use them as examples, but because that's our show, it's kind of our baby. We used to do it every other week, and then we moved to monthly. And once we started getting a build up, we were just like, hey, let's dump content as much as we possibly can, because we try different strategies. So anytime something new comes up, we use the perspective as kind of our guinea pig. So I wouldn't say it's super consistent, but it's intentionally that way.
Yeah.
Whereas other shows that we work with, we try to get them out weekly.
So when you work with, talk to us about what that means. You work with other shows. You help speakers, or you help businesses create their own podcasts. Walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, so we work with businesses, not strictly businesses, but for the most part, that's where we're at right now. Implement podcasting in their marketing campaigns. So marketing is a struggle for everybody. The marketing world is shifting, it's changing, and everyone's trying to say, like, how do I get in front of people? And, before it was radio ads, it was newspapers, it's TV ads. Well, now all of a sudden it's online. So how do you get in front of people online? How do you build credibility without having just flyer posts all the time on Facebook and LinkedIn? And so the podcast world actually creates a lot of problem solving for businesses, especially. Now, when you get into other types of podcasting, like variety shows or entertainment, avenues, there's other things that you can do to build up, self-promotion and self-branding. But specifically right now, we are focusing more on businesses just because we have that marketing niche. However, there are clients that we're working with. One of the programs that we actually just lost, in a sense, was it got picked up by a TV network. So although it's a loss for us, it was kind of a success because it started from nothing. And to be able to get it to that point for us was a big win. So yes, we're trying to replace that, but it gave us huge credibility and for ourselves, showing us that, yeah, we do know what we're doing.
That's amazing. I was going to add, well, you took my question out of my mouth, because I wanted to find out about at least one client success story. Are you able to divulge the name, or if not, then tell us what the podcast was about, and then how did that come into play?
Yeah, so in Canada, the same as everywhere else, there was big issues when it came to political debate on mandates. Let's just say, I don't like getting political, but
sure.
In the case of this show, that's really what it was. It was more of a freedom type podcast, but mm-hmm. it was hosted by someone who was actively in the legal process of working with, and so very high end interviews, very public figures that were on that show. And he invested a lot. Like there was a lot of money invested to make that show a success. However, the return on investment for him was actually very high.
That's
so
amazing.
that was something in it. And it was timing too, right?
Yeah.
Like in 10 years, is that program going to be as relevant? Maybe not. Would it have worked 5 years ago? No, but right time, right place, right content, it worked.
Right message for that audience. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And congratulations. That's a great accomplishment and a great accolade for you and your team. What did the people that were on the podcast or who host or own it or whatever, did they actively pitch it to television, to network television, or
No.
network television just found them?
Yeah.
That's wow. There we go. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're going to see this coming up in the future. So I know we had talked about before, podcasting has been around for a while, but it's still relatively in its infancy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to see a lot of TV networks say, hey, like we're losing attention because of podcasting. So you see a lot of Roger Sports, they're picking up content from podcasters. And now they're saying, hey, check us out on our podcast as well. These TV networks are saying, hey, like we need to cash in on podcasting as well. And so you're starting to see these networks actually go to podcasts that have some drive to them and have some, content that's relatable, and they're starting to pick them up.
Well, it's very smart.
Gaining traction.
Yeah, it's very smart on their side because the podcasts that exist already have a built-in audience. They've already created content. They're already doing it actively anyway. And so, yeah, that's pretty exciting. Let's talk about guests. Not every guest is amazing. Not every guest is engaging. Right? Talk to us about what is a high value guest. And then we'll talk to because we have a lot of speakers who are listening as well, and maybe some advice for them. But first of all, what's a high value guest?
So high value guests are people that bring value to your audience. Simple as that. That's a high value guest. Doesn't matter about their net worth. It doesn't matter about their following, because their following is irrelevant to your following. You are bringing them on. So as a host, it's your job to make sure that the person is bringing value to your audience. And sometimes people get too stuck up on, oh, they have a huge following. Who cares? It's not their following that you're trying to achieve. Maybe you'll tap into it. But as far as that episode goes, their following is completely irrelevant at the time. So it's your responsibility as a host to make sure that the guests you bring on are high value. And so I know that's kind of another conversation, but that is extremely important. Now, if you've been selected to say, hey, we feel that you are a valuable guest, yes, you meet the parameters as far as content goes. Now, as from a guest perspective, how do I bring value? How do I make sure that, I can use this as credibility so that I can get on other programs as well? And the best thing you can do to become a high value guest or high value speaker is to understand that it's not your audience, to understand that it's not your program. You are being given the honor of coming on their hard work and their program that they've put their time and effort into to be showcased. So when you lead with that, now all of a sudden you have to think about, okay, so they're coming to me, I'm being brought on this show, not because I'm special, but because I can bring value to their audience. Now, how do I do that? First of all, you have to understand who their audience is. So if you're brought on a show that's talking about entrepreneurs, whether you're an entrepreneur or not is irrelevant. How do I bring value to entrepreneurs? Now, if you just come on saying, I'm so amazing, I'm special, I'm well-spoken, you're missing the point. You're not a high-value guest, and you'll never be brought back on. And you're going to struggle in that world because they're not going to recommend you to other shows. Us, for example, when we come into a guest, we have them on our show, we have some fun, but I also give them the opportunity to say, hey, I can connect you with other shows. I can connect you with other people in our network, even if it's not a show that we produce. Hey, I know a ton of other shows. I think we should connect you with this person, this person, this person. But if you don't bring any value to us as a show, I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
So you have to consider who you're speaking to.
And how do you go about finding guests for your show and the shows that you produce?
So I have a little bit different of a strategy personally, just because networking is a very easy thing for me. I reach out to a ton of people. I have very clear messaging. I've had people respond that I thought would never respond to me. But just because of the organic messaging and the outreach that I do, I've encountered some really high value people, and not even just net worth. I mean, like high value in the sense of being in your network, being a part of your connections, and bringing that to the audience. So, I mean, I've developed that, and I can definitely share that. But also just certain Facebook groups, like this Facebook group that you have, for example, we discussed that before. I feel is very high value and probably undervalued as far as a lot of the other groups that I've been in. But there's one specific one called Need a Guest or Be a Guest.
Yeah.
And it's a very large group, very active group. And you don't have to go crazy and say, oh, I'm going to apply for all of them. But you can qualify for a lot of really niche ones that get you in front of a good audience. And some of my best opportunities have actually come from that Facebook group. So finding groups like that that are actual engaging and active is actually a really good way to connect with programs or, in person. And I've made both in person and online connections for opportunities from specifically that group.
And shout out to, I'm actually good friends with the creator and host of that group, Angel Tussey, who's a media strategy expert for entrepreneurs. And she's actually been a sponsor at our Ultimate Speaker competition. We've shared the stage together multiple times. And yes, Need a Guest, Be a Guest. There's like, how many? 7,000? I don't even know.
It's coming up.
More than 5,000. More than 5,000. And it's not a place to, like, they're very strict in how you post, but it's very simple. You have a stage, you need guests, you post it, and you'll find them. If you would like to be a guest, and if you're a speaker, I hope you would want to be a guest on somebody's stage, platform, show, podcast, whatever it may be. And people reach out, and it's a great. But that is the strict sole focus of that group. They're very clear, and like you said, it's a great resource. I had a thought, and now it came back. What would you say? What would be your advice for somebody who has a podcast, and they really have a dream of a particular celebrity client or a celebrity guest? Whatever that may be. It doesn't matter what industry they're in, whether sports, politics, religion, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, business. What's your advice about? Is that something that one should pursue? And is there a specific strategy, or maybe you can comment about your own experience?
Yeah. So I encourage everybody to have a top 100 list.
Top 100. Okay.
Top 100 list. And that list, nothing's out of reach. Never say that something's out of reach for you, because unless you are an amputee that wants to, win the Olympics, that's physically impossible. But apart from physical limitations, nothing's impossible. But it's about strategy and roadmap to get there. So when you're top 100, let's say as an entrepreneur, you've got somebody like Mark Cuban or Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone, whoever that is. Now, maybe at current state, you're not going to be seen by them. Maybe you're not going to be able to get through because of all the red tape and blockades that are in your way. But number one, find that list and refine that list. Don't do it because. So let's use the name Mark Cuban, for example. A lot of people are familiar with him. Don't go after him just because he's a celebrity. Don't go after him just because he's rich or because he's on TV. Go after him because he's valuable, because he's got insights that benefit your audience. So if your top 100 is full of people just because of popularity, you're doing it wrong. And that means that your show's not going to have value. That episode's not going to be as valuable as you potentially could. So make that list based on value content for your audience. Now, once you have that, then say, okay, am I in a place where it's going to make sense for them to take time out of their schedule to spend time with me? Now, if you say, yes, I'm there, I do have something valuable, then just go for it. So there was an individual that we had on the show. He's come on twice, and he's probably what I consider, he would never have been in my top 100 because I didn't hear about him. He wasn't from North America. He was down in Australia. But he will forever be in my top 100, and he will forever be who I recommend to be in my top 100 when it comes to business, entrepreneurs, advice, strategy. And he has been probably one of the most helpful people in my life. Wow. When it comes to, some of the feedback he's given us and his willingness to spend time with us. And now looking back, I can't believe we connected with him. But how I connected with him is on LinkedIn. He made some valuable content, and I was like, this guy is really good. He's somebody that I want on the show. And I reached out to him, and I gave him a very authentic, upfront, said, hey, we don't have a big show. We're just starting out, but we love your content. We would love an opportunity to have you on the show. And coming to him saying, I would like the opportunity to work with you, not, hey, this would be really cool if you came on our show, right? This was about him bringing value and us, being honored to have him on the show. And he did, and he came back, and we still connect. So, and after spending time with him, he actually spent time with us off camera saying hey, this is where we should spend more time together. So when you reach out to your top 100, don't go in begging. Don't go in saying, oh, you should be on our show and this desperate. It's no, I want the opportunity to work with you. And I would like the opportunity for our audience to have some time with you as well. And that organic outreach actually will weed out guests that I've reached out to, guests that I regret reaching out to because of the response I got. And I was like, I definitely missed the mark on that one because I misread them. And that's not somebody I want on my show. But yet other people reached out, and we've become very good connections in the meantime. So I think having clarity on why you're bringing in the guest is very important. And then just keep trying. And if it's somebody that you're no, this is somebody valuable, I need on my show, I want the opportunity, don't give up. Keep reaching out for that opportunity.
Yeah. And one of my mentors, Bill Walsh, he's not the only person who's ever said it, but who taught me very simple mindset. Everyone is approachable. Everyone is approachable. And to add to what you're saying, I think it also is important that, not just about them and their content, but what else do they value? For example, when we do events, we always support a nonprofit. And if you have a certain top 100 high value celebrity type guests that you would like to have, find out what they're interested in outside of the things that is publicly portrayed. You use Mark Cuban as an example. Well, people know he, from watching on Shark Tank, he's health conscious. He has a daughter, or he has I guess 2 daughters. But what causes does he care about? What nonprofit or charity does he support? And, that's another avenue that might be more likely. And then also what you said, that, if you're not authentic, if you're presenting yourself as, we've got this amazing show and we've got, X number of viewers and downloads. And first of all, they're probably not going to they're really not going to go and look up and see how many downloads you have. They're going to decide based upon your communication and conversation. But I think people like him, people that we're talking about, they were young entrepreneurs themselves. And the ones that we think are unapproachable or hard to reach, typically when you get to actually communicate and have a conversation with them, they want to help. They want to be of service, is what I've found, right? It's not they've made it and now they're unreachable. So very, very exciting. Who inspires you? In general, or today, or
No. You know what's funny is it constantly changes.
Yeah, and that's what I thought.
It really does, and that's something that has kind of been a newer thing for me. I'm very, very pro personal development, and by no means am I a winner in that category. That is, something you fall short of all the time. But as you keep developing and as you keep, learning and expanding, different people appeal to you, and you bring different people into your circle. And, there was a time, and I'm not here to ask anybody, but there was a time when somebody like Grant Cardone, I was like, man, I want to be like that guy. And now as things are changing for me, I'm saying, is that my style? I don't really think that's my style now. That's not something I'm attracted to. I'm very happy that he's doing well or projecting that or whatever, but it's not somebody that I follow as closely now. Now I go more towards somebody like Brad Lea. And, I really like his messaging. I like his approach. I like his just reality. I think so that's somebody I really, in the entrepreneur end of my life, that it's somebody that I relate to a lot more in his messaging. I like the organic approach. So in my entrepreneur world, that's definitely there. In my personal life, honestly, people that inspire me, they're not celebrities. They're people that have supported me and people that are doing well, and I've watched them grow. And one of them was one of the first guests that we ever had on our show, and we've stayed in really close contact. And to see her excel and become successful more and more as time goes on, she inspires me every day. And we stay in close contact, and we've supported each other. And I think that's really special to see someone from the beginning. So that's definitely somebody that inspires me. And I have lots of people like that are just in my circle, and they inspire me because they support me and they push me and they hold me accountable.
I completely feel the same way. People that have come across our stage, people that have been a part of my speaking program, I tell them, oh my, and especially when you see somebody's growth and you see where they started. Oh my gosh, I think of Courtney Kaplan. She's a member of this group. She's been on our stage 2 times. She's going to be on this TV show on Amazon Prime Video that we are producing in a couple of months. And I tell her all the time, my gosh, you inspire me. Jenna DeBolt, another one. When you work with somebody and you're able to pour into them and share your gifts and your knowledge and build them up, and then for them to be one that I would even say I look up to them, in some ways. And it's just exciting to know, because when you work with people one-on-one, the impact that you make, or at least you have a better idea. When we're broadcasting, we never know. You're never going to know who's listened unless they write in. And that's very, 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 very minute percentage of people that are going to make a comment and tell you that your podcast or an episode changed their life or changed their perspective or something. But we know that it does happen because the whole industry is growing and people do resonate. But to be able to see people face to face, that they're taking in what you're sharing and knowing that it's creating impact, to me, that is a very, I say our highest calling is to use our gifts in service to others. And the world is waiting for you to heed the call. Do you have any favorite quote, either of your own, a Mitch Hartley quote? And if you don't, Mitch, I'm going to challenge you and encourage you. I think that all speakers, it's great to quote others because it shows, that we learn and we are, well read or whatever. But I truly believe that it's also great for speakers to have our own quotes as well. So any quotes?
So for sure.
So
I've got a quote from somebody else, and I've got a quote that I've, kind of went by myself.
Yeah.
So the first one is actually by Heath Ledger. It was when he was really young. And I can't remember exact wording, but basically the premise was, when we meet somebody, we ask the questions: do you own a house? What do you do for work? Questions about their life, but we never actually ask them, are they happy? And that one always has really stuck with me, because when I meet people, it doesn't matter what they do for work. I may be interested in it, but I don't gauge them on what they do for work. I don't gauge them if they rent or own. I don't gauge them. Everyone's circumstances change. Everything is up and down. But if somebody's happy, that's somebody you want in your circle. That's somebody you want in your tribe. And it doesn't matter if they're broke or rich. It doesn't matter if they own or rent. My life situation has done this, and it changes every day. And it's going to be different in 6 months than it is now. So that quote really resonated with me in that sense of like, just find out if they're happy. Ask people if they're happy. It doesn't matter where they're at in their journey. Are they happy? There's a lot of unhappy rich people, and there's a lot of really smart broke people. So, those are things that really stuck with me. As far as something for myself, there's kind of two, and they've evolved. The one that I used for a long time was, shoot for the stars because you might land on the moon. Everyone goes shooting for the stars like this unattainable goal. But if you're shooting for the stars, like, it's still a win. It's still a win to land on the moon. So it's not failure to not hit the star.
Yeah.
Because you've exceeded so many other people. So that was something that really pushed me. Because it's like, if I have this goal that maybe in a sense is unattainable, where am I going to land on that journey? And I'm going to open up doors that, maybe I didn't know were possible. And the second one that kind of evolved into that I currently tell myself every day is never say no until you know all the facts.
Never say no till you know all the facts. Never say no till you know all the facts. Mitch Harley. Got to put it in quotation marks.
That's something that will create opportunity for you, for anybody that uses that quote, because we are so quick to say no. As soon as we are challenged to leave our comfort zone, we say no. It's our first reaction. And whether that's society ingrained, whether that's like whatever the reason for that, but that's a natural tendency for most people, I think, that you encounter.
Sure.
Is you bring something new to them and you say, hey, you want to try this? No. Hey, I got this really cool. No. And it's not that they don't even like the idea. It's just they're uncomfortable.
Sure.
But what I've learned to say is somebody goes, hey, I got this opportunity, or hey, can you listen to this? I don't care if it's a sales pitch. I don't care if you're selling insurance. Sure. What do you got? I don't have to jump into it. Tell me what you got. Tell me what you're presenting. And when I hear all the facts, I can make an informed decision. And sometimes it surprises you. Sometimes you get an opportunity that sometimes it's just you created a connection. You created a network. Well, that's a win just because you said yes. Now, the rule with that I use is unless it's immediately going to hurt myself or somebody else. I mean, obviously, someone goes, hey, do this and it's going to cause someone harm. Yeah, that's enough facts for me. I'm going to say no. But like this connection here, you reached out. I could have said no because I really knew nothing. I knew nothing about what you brought to the table. I knew
nothing. Who is this guy?
Yeah, like he's reaching out, but I said yes because it's like I have nothing to lose by creating this connection, and it's not going to hurt anybody. So what do I got to lose? And you know what? I feel like it's a great decision that I said yes. But it was because of that, never say no until you know all the facts. So it has driven a lot of opportunity for me and what me and Devin are building.
It's a great mindset. Going back to this woman who I mentioned earlier, who is one of my mentees, peers, speakers, who inspires me, Jenny DeBolt. She says, I live a yes life. So she's kind of the opposite. She presumes to say yes until she gets more facts that tell her she should say no. What I learned from somebody before, very simple. It's kind of the same thing you said, but in a very simple way. When somebody offers or asks something, just simple 3 words, tell me more. You don't say yes, you don't say no. It's, oh, tell me more. And that gives you the time. So I think a lot of people are one way or the other. Some people do just jump in. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. And then they become, people who are people pleasers, and they don't want to say no, so they don't give themselves that permission. And then later on, they said yes to something, but then they don't fulfill their obligation, or they're overstressing, overwhelming themselves, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, as we all want to, whether consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously or both, stay in our comfort zone. Yeah. Growth is challenging. It's hard. It usually has an opportunity where you have to say yes to it. Sometimes there's forced growth, right?
growth is interesting because in order for, and I would say the majority of people that watch this or, incorporated with the groups or anything like that, they're looking for growth.
Mm-hmm.
They want to excel and they want to succeed and they want to move forward. That means that you have to be uncomfortable 100% of the time, because growth does not come from being comfortable. You go to the gym, it's uncomfortable. You're pushing yourself, you're sweating, you're grunting, you're making noises that you don't want to make because you're trying to grow. You're trying to, move forward. And in business, they call it growing pains, that growing curve. It's uncomfortable. There's some stresses. And some of the best growth you can do is from that stress factor, a healthy stress factor. A rubber band, I use that analogy all the time. If you don't put stress on a rubber band, it actually disintegrates and it will stop performing. It'll have a very short life. If you overextend that for a period of time, shorten life. But a proper amount of resistance and pressure and stress and tension on that rubber band, you have the highest performing, longest life out of that rubber band. And it has purpose. So for us as individuals, if we're under that, right amount of pressure and tension, we will actually be the highest performing version of ourselves. And so we really want to make sure that if you want to grow, put yourself in uncomfortable situations and you will succeed. You will excel and you will start to gain opportunities that you wouldn't have been presented with before.
What an amazing, simple yet profound metaphor. The rubber band, the lowly rubber band. You can get 500 of them for whatever, $2 or something, right?
I use that. I spoke at a women's retreat, and I put on a self-awareness course, and I gave each of them, before we started, I gave each of them a rubber band.
I was just thinking that as you were talking. I'm gonna borrow that idea if I may.
Use it. And I gave them all these rubber bands, and I didn't tell them what it was for. And partway through the course, I said, take your rubber band, and if it's a noodle in your hand, that's you doing absolutely nothing. Right? But now let's start putting some pressure on it. And I'm going to say key words like work. How much stress does work cause you? Now I'm going to say things like family, adulting, driving, car payments. And I started listing off these things. I said, keep pulling. And if it's a big stress or if it's a little stress, pull accordingly. And by the end of the key words, most people were like pushing it, right? And then I said, now I'm going to say the word COVID. And the band started snapping. And I said, now you understand what society is at right now. They were already at their max, and then they got pulled that little bit more, and you have people snapping all around you. That's brutal. And to understand that, now you can lead with empathy. When you come across somebody, you can have that empathy that where are they at their rubber band? Are they at their max? And one more thing could make them snap. Like, what a heartbreaking situation to be in. So for us, as people that are trying to be leaders, people that are trying to be, examples and bring positivity to other people, what we have to realize is, first of all, we got to, maybe our rubber band needs to be brought back a little bit. Maybe that's by simplifying. Maybe it's by some personal development, some mind change, whatever. But when we encounter somebody, are we able to provide insight? Are we able to provide some sort of, attribute to them that allows them to come down a little bit? Because if we do, they're going to gravitate to us.
Yeah.
As soon as you add that to somebody, they don't want a part of it. Let's release it. So go ahead, take that, and everyone can use that. They can take a rubber band and they can use it and say, where am I at? And they can use it as that self-gauge.
That's really great. I love that. I love it. What's your superpower?
People.
Explain.
Straight up. Like I said, I'm extremely extroverted. I don't just like being around people. It's how I recharge. Some people recharge by shutting down, not engaging. You have to understand your own self. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you have to recognize how you recharge. And everyone does that differently. There's metrics on how to do that. And I've done a lot of research on that. And for me personally, there's two things I have to do. When you are extroverted on the scale, not most stats are made up on the spot, right? But let's say that 70 to 80% stats are made up on the spot.
87% of stats are made up.
87% are made up on the spot. But when you're over that 70 to 75% extroverted on the scale, there is nothing that will push you to be introverted. So that means that when you're at that point, every time you need to recharge, you have to be engaged with somebody. And that doesn't mean you have to go to a club or anything and crazy, but you have to have some sort of engagement, and that even in a calm setting, and that will bring your battery level back to life. Now, when you're over that 80 to 90%, you cannot recharge around people fast enough to fill your battery. And you actually have to become introverted periodically. So for me, I had to recognize that. But because of that, I call my superpower being with people and networking and creating connection and conversation. And I've had people that have just met me and they're like, I've never opened up like that around anybody. But it's because when you're coming to somebody and you lead with empathy and gratitude, you're not there to lecture them. You don't have that shoot and reload mentality where you say something and when they respond, you're thinking of your next thing to say and you're not actually processing what they're saying. It's okay to pause. It's okay to process what they just told you. That's not a bad thing to have some silence. And when you do that, you create very strong connections. So for me to be able to connect with people very quickly, bring them into my network to try to benefit them, that's my superpower. And my partner, Devin, he says this all the time. He's like, your ability to connect with people is unmatched. So that's definitely my superpower. And it's one of the things where when I coach people on how to actually interview on their shows, it's one of the things, like, this isn't about, a pre-scripted list of questions. Mm-hmm. When you have organic conversation with somebody, not only is it really good content, but it's how you establish really strong connections and relationships with people is when it's organic. And it's very hard to break those bonds after. And that's just kind of been my whole life, is just that ability, that charisma to be able to just get people to open up and create those connections.
That's very, very cool. We pretty similar. I've actually received an award for being a master connector a few years back.
Well, sign me up, because I'd love to compete for that.
Yeah, it wasn't even a competition, and here's the thing with people like us who are natural connectors. I think the word networker is overworked and whatever, right. Overused. Yeah. It's not that other people, for example, it's not like I meet people that other people don't meet. It's that I think our brains are wired differently. I know Jim and I know Susie, and they may know each other, but they've never considered creating synergy or anything together. Hey, Jim, do you know Susie? Yeah, I know Susie. Well, you know what she does? And then you put these people together. So it's not only us, you connecting with somebody, but it's you also being that bridge too. Correct?
But that comes from wanting to benefit people. And that's not hoarding information. That's not somebody that's like, this is my network and it's my effort that I put into it. That's you gotta erase that. I was described by somebody. I took a course on personality traits and how people, are hardwired. And after I took it, they used me as an example, and they said, like, Mitch does not demand to be the center of attention. He just is. And that's a difference. And what it does is it actually divides people, because a lot of people have accused me of being arrogant and cocky and, wants the limelight. I do not enter a space saying, hey, how do I control this? I enter this space and say, hey, what can we create? Mm-hmm. Because no matter who you are, if somebody goes, that guy's the life of the party, that's something else that has come up. The life of the party. The life of the party is not a solo act. The life of the party is somebody that engages everyone else to create an experience. So it has nothing to do with me and what I actually do. It's not me jumping off a table. It's not, it's bringing people together to create an experience. And everybody knows who made that. And so that's technically what makes you the center of attention. But like, I've been at concerts where, smaller venues, I'm not talking about 20,000 people, but I've been at concerts where the band, after a song, has said, whoever that guy is, thank you, because you made an experience here. for everybody. And it wasn't because I was making a fool of myself, but it was because I was engaging with people. I was getting people to have fun together and step out of their comfort zone because they're surrounded by people they don't know, and getting people to engage with each other. And when you do that, you create an experience. And so to me, that's, I guess, what you call the superpower in a sense, right? There's certain activities that I love to do because I get to engage with people. And going to a bar and sitting at the bar and trying to start conversation, that's not the scene. There's a lot of other things that you can do where people are a little bit, they want to chat, but nobody wants to start that. But if you can get that going, some of my best connections have been in situations like that, where you just start talking to somebody and then the next person talks in, and all of a sudden you've got this surrounded by something simple. And so as I think as a speaker, especially, or somebody that does kind of in the realm of where we're at, it's not about your stage presence. It's not just about being a guest on a show. It's afterwards. Do you engage with the audience? Do you create connections? Are you available for people? Like, don't wait for people to come up to you. Go talk to them. You're not above them. You're not a celebrity. And even celebrities, like celebrities that go out and talk to people, Keanu Reeves, classic example. Shaquille O'Neal. Some of the best viral videos of that guy were because he was in the audience or he was on the street with people and he was doing something goofy with them. Keanu Reeves, his birthday, sits outside of a bakery by himself and he eats a cupcake. Everyone's seen that, or a lot of people have seen that video, but it's because he wasn't out there being like, I'm Keanu Reeves or I'm Shaquille O'Neal. And people are like, no, I love that. So if you do have the opportunity to speak in front of an audience, go engage with them after. Be that person. See how you can bring value to them. And that is how you can create an experience, and you can create some of the best networking that you will ever be able to create.
100% agree. And sadly, there are too many events with too many speakers that the mindset is, what time am I on? Sometimes they may or may not even know or ask who they are following or what happened before them. It's like, what time am I on? How much time do I have? They're in, they do their deal. I mean, I produce events. I remember one we did a few years ago, recently, but more than one time. Speaker comes in, speaks for 30, 45 minutes. They're offering a program or a product or something. At lunch, 3 or 4 of our attendees say, hey, where's Joe? I want to talk to him. Oh, he's on a plane. He's gone. He's stuck around for like 15 minutes. See me in the back of the room. You didn't go. Most people aren't going to go to the back of the room. They want to feel it out. They want to. So when we do events and when we have featured speakers and sponsors, and yes, there's opportunity, those of you who are watching all the time, to be a speaker, a guest speaker, a featured speaker, a sponsor. It's about relationship. And our events tend to be more than one day long. So if a sponsor wants to come in and just do their gig, they're not a good fit. And I think that's for many entities these days. You're right. It's about connection and relationship. I say you're always on stage. Set the tone, read your audience. This is a show. Starts long before you hit the stage. But long before you get on this.
What you're explaining takes us back to what we talked to. Are you a high value guest? And so if you're actually a high value guest, yeah, maybe you came in, maybe you paid to play, maybe you're getting paid to do it. Who cares? It doesn't make you a high value guest, because that can disappear. Your value fluctuates. So don't for a second think just because you got a paid opportunity that you're a high value guest, because you got to prove it still. And so if you're leaving right away, you came in saying the audience needs me, not what can I do for the audience and what can I do for those listening. And somebody that comes in and says, okay, this is not my audience. This is the program's audience. This is the event's audience. What can I do for them? They're going to stick around. They're going to try to see what else they can bring value on that off stage. That is a high value guest. And so I think for, people like yourself who organize events, those are things to really pay attention to, because you are specifically creating that program to benefit the audience. And if you bring someone in, maybe it's just their name and lights, but that doesn't make them a high value guest for your audience. Sometimes, I don't want to say B grade, but let's say underdog or not as recognizable names.
Sure, lesser known,
can bring just as much value to your audience. And now you're giving more opportunity to them. You're giving somebody that's actually going to engage with them and benefit them, not just lecture at them. So I think that kind of plays into that. If they leave right away just because they're so busy and they think they're so high value that they don't want to engage with the audience, or they don't really create that opportunity, you got to ask that question: is that a high value guest?
Yeah. And the two contrasts, we've seen both ends of the spectrum. The one where the speaker comes on stage and completely negates what somebody else just said, what a previous speaker said, in an absolute, like, Facebook ads are stupid and dumb, and if you're spending any money on Facebook ads, you're wasting your money. We just had a Facebook ad expert up right before them. But the other side is somebody who is in tune. They know who is speaking. They build connection even with them, and they get on stage and wow. Are you who gained great value from Mitch? Was that amazing? I want to. He's not paying me, but I want to know who's signing up to be a part of this podcast program. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I have nothing to do with it. I'm not getting an affiliate. I'm not and I think you and I think alike. And sometimes we know these things, but it bears repeating because there's a lot of ups and downs in this industry. And I think people truly probably want to do things in a good way and bring positivity, but sometimes we just fall into bad habits and follow what other people are doing, right?
Well, and I think an example like that, when, to come in and negate, that's a lack of self-awareness for one. And it's also somebody that says, this audience
only needs me.
Them something. Yeah, they need me. They need to know that Facebook ads are the worst. The fact is, not just on that topic, but use that as an example. The fact is, there is no silver bullet for business. There is no matter what topic you're talking about, there's no silver bullet. And so to come in and say that this is the silver bullet, it's a lie. It's a lie that you're trying to sell. That's why we called our show The Perspective, because every guest has a different perspective from me, a different perspective from you. There is no arguing on our show. And it's not because we say, hey, no arguing. It's because there's no purpose in arguing. People that argue on shows, platforms, stages, it's to create, this
drama
and to create engagement and this emotional reaction. Gary Vaynerchuk is a classic example of somebody that, creates emotional, intention because he says these outlandish things. But the fact is, even he recognizes anything can work. Now, different levels. Yes, different people succeed using different roadmaps. Absolutely. But to say Facebook ads don't work, what are you comparing it to? Are you comparing it to other forums that maybe work better for that business? Or are you comparing it to newspapers? I would say Facebook ads work better than newspapers, but I don't think they work as good as other strategies. So nothing is absolute. So to go in and say that, something is absolute, you're actually pushing away a portion of your audience. You're pushing away support from, producers or anything like that. So if you go in and say, hey, that's going to work for somebody, some of you are really going to benefit from that. I love it. It was great information. Here's another option. Here's something that maybe benefits in a different group. So you're not creating absolutes. You're creating more options. And that's what brings value to the entire audience.
Absolutely. I said absolutely just because I'm in agreement, not because it's absolute. Any one of these different platforms, there's somebody crushing it on anything that's out there, right? And I know it's a whole another episode, and haven't even opened that topic yet. But of course, AI, right?
Yeah.
And everybody should use this. Well, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But somebody is making X work for them. It doesn't mean it's going to work for me all the time. time is flying, which is pretty amazing and a really good sign. I have a couple of final questions, but before we get to that, what do you have in the works? What are you excited about? What project or goal might you have that you'd like to share, in the near future, 2023, or what are you working on? What do you got in the works?
Yeah, so us as a brand, we're working on some pretty cool things. We've got some shows in the pipeline that I think are going to be really, really neat. They're not anything really I can divulge at the moment, but there's some really good opportunities coming up. I think it's going to be really beneficial for people to see those programs. We're also working a lot, and like you and me have spoken about, our public presence, whether it be on stages or virtual, is something we're going to drive really, really hard. I've had some really neat opportunities with some online business summits that have gone live within the past month or so. And so I'm going to continue pursuing that. I've got an opportunity coming up, and I'm hoping that it kind of goes through. I'm going to work hard at it, being on stage down in Phoenix with a great group of people as well. And we're going to keep moving hard at that. We want to be on as many shows as possible. It's not just about promoting our brand,
sure,
but we want to be really active in the community. We don't just start podcasts for people that say, hey, I don't know how to start a podcast. We're actually working with people that have podcasts and say, hey, I don't want to do this part of it anymore. Can you guys take that over? Or, hey, I just want the coaching, or hey, I just want the editing. And we help them to kind of grow and succeed. I mean, I use the analogy, businesses, everyone starts out, they have to wear all the hats, but how many people like doing accounting for their own business? They hate it. It sucks. So what do? They hire it out because they're too big. Lots of people start off doing their own marketing, then they get bigger, and then they hate it, so they hire it out. And that's something else that we work with. So we're really working on expanding who we're working with, rather than just saying, hey, we can start a podcast for you. It's like, no, how do we help podcasts to grow, to that next step? And so I think by being on other people's shows, I think by being present, being engaging, and giving as much value as we can to people, that's our drive for this year, and always will be, is how do we bring value to people, because we'll benefit from that. Like, I'm not worried about that.
How would people find you, and if they wanted to explore opportunities of working with you?
So we're on all the platforms, all the social media problems, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. As well, we've got our website, perspectivepodcast.ca. And any one of those, you can either reach out to us. We do have a form on our website that you can go in and just under be a guest, and you can just put in some notes and say, hey, I don't want to be a guest, but I want to work with you guys, or I want to try it out. We do an offering where, hey, you want to try it out? You want to see what it's like to be on a podcast? Come on our show. We'll do a recording with you. We'll produce it. We'll publish it. We'll give you some content that you can use for yourself. And then from there, you can, decide if that experience is something that you want to work with. So we offer that to everybody, and that's a free offering that we give everybody.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, listen, friends who are watching, who are listening, if you've been thinking about, planning to, dreaming of, intentioning, set it as a goal, but haven't dipped your foot or your toe into the podcast pool, Mitch is offering you an opportunity here to check it out and see what it would be like. Perspectivepodcast.ca for Canada. And then Mitch Harley on any of the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it like that. TikTok, Instagram, you'll find him. All right, to end, I am a huge believer in, and I believe you being a student of personal development, you may resonate with this, but I truly believe in the power of the words that we say, our I am statements. So I would like to ask you what your I am statement may be. Maybe it's a mantra that you use regularly, or you say to yourself, I am blank, 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 or something that you have in your mind right now. So you would say, I am, boom, 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 boom. And then you end it with, and my gift to the world is.
I would sum it up in one word. I'm determined. And with that determination, I want to progressively get better as a person. I want to progressively get better as an entrepreneur. And I'm determined to help people in whatever capacity that is. So it really is summed up by, I am determined in whatever I do.
And my gift to the world is?
My gift to the world, I guess you could sum it up in positivity. I'm in my happy place right now, and I love building other people up. I love supporting them, and I love helping them on their journey. And so that's what I would say my gift is.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Mitch. So cool. I love spending time with you. Thank you for sharing this time with our guest. And again, you can find Mitch all over social media. Mitch Harley, MITCHHARLEY, the perspectivepodcast.ca. Friends, this has been the Speaker Spotlight presented by Ultimate Speaker Facebook community. And I'm your host, Christoff J Weihman, America's favorite 5-star customer experience expert and speaker empowerment coach. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.